So the object starts out at 4 meters in the positive position. Then it moves towards the negative position at a constant velocity for 3 seconds. Then it still moves in the negative position and at a constant velocity for another 2 seconds, but this time the velocity is greater, which is indicated by the steeper slope here than here. Afterwards, the object does not move for another 2 seconds. Then, for the last 3 seconds, it moves at a constant velocity, and it moves towards the positive position, and it finally reaches the midpoint between the 4 meters in the positive position and the negative 4 meters in the negative position. Start. Stop. The displacement versus time graph has constant velocities. So the velocity versus time graph, each line segment will have no slope, meaning that they are constant. So for the first 3 seconds, the velocity is -1 meters per second. This is because the slope of the displacement versus time graph is -1 meters per second for the first 3 seconds. So on the velocity versus time graph for the first 3 seconds, the velocity will be -1, unchanging, -1 the whole time. And once again, the slope of the displacement versus time graph is -2.5 meters per second for the next 2 seconds. So -2.5 meters per second for the velocity for the next 2 seconds. Then the displacement versus time graph has no slope right here, a slope of 0 actually. And since it is the slope of a displacement versus time graph is velocity, and the slope is 0, that means the velocity must be 0, and it is like that for another 2 seconds. Finally, at the last 3 seconds, the slope is 1.25 meters per second on the displacement versus time graph, so the line from the last 3 seconds will be 1.25 meters per second, indicating that the velocity stays constant at 1.25 meters per second for the final 3 seconds. The slope of the velocity versus time graphs is equal to acceleration, and the slope of each line segment in the velocity versus time graph is 0. So the acceleration will be 0 the entire time. We are dealing with ideal data in this example, so each line segment, and since each line segment has a slope of 0, the acceleration versus time will be 0 for the entire graph.